I mean, the skies just got so black. I know you walked the dogs early in the morning. You said you dodged some.
I was lucky as far as the timing. I turned on the TV early, and I was looking at my phone and said, it's time to go, and we got out, and much shorter than normal. I like to try to get 2 to 3 miles in the morning. This was probably a little over a mile is all, but anyway, it was dry, so that was good.
So big news over the weekend. Your nephew, Brian Peterson, is now a Division I basketball coach, head coach.
Yes, it's fantastic. He's been an assistant for quite some time, and for those that don't know, he's a local kid. My sister Karen Peterson in town. This is their son, and he played at Clinton High, has several records I think that still stand. He's in the Clinton High Hall of Fame. I mean, he had a really successful program in basketball. He was good athlete all around, but basketball was kind of his gig, and went the Kirkwood route. From there, 2 years there. From there, he went to Iowa State, started the last 2 years. And then went on to the coaching ranks as far as kind of at a junior level, and then an assistant coach, and then now he's handed the keys to South Dakota State. He's been up there for a few years as an assistant coach, and that coach moved on to Drake, and so the job opening came about, and they offered him the keys. So I was really excited. It was, I think, 2 days prior to him finding out that he was going to be the coach, or could be the coach. I saw it on one of the little runners on ESPN that South Dakota coach, accepts the position at Drake. I thought, well, he's either going to Drake or he's going to probably get the keys. And I guess they hand him the keys. So we're really thrilled. Selfishly, we're hoping, he'd be a little closer to home, but you could get to a couple games. But nevertheless, I'm thrilled for him. He's paid his dues. He's a really level-headed kid. I don't say that just lightly. I can be very critical as far as of people, but at the end of the day, level-headed kid, going to do a nice job. He loves coaching. He wants the fundamental part of it as far as on the floor coaching. He's not into the politics as far as behind the scenes and dealing with some of that. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a really nice fit for him.
He became a graduate assistant at Iowa State after his playing days, so he worked under Greg McDermott and then Fred Hoiberg.
Yes.
Then after Kirkwood went to South Dakota State, and Otzelberger was the head coach.
Yes,
that was his
first
head coach, and then now there's Eric Henderson, who is now at Drake University. So he's learned a lot. But, he won 2 national championships at Kirkwood as the head coach.
Exciting. I mean, again, I love... my career as far as coaching varsity girls basketball, we'd sit around and chat, and I just listened to him. His insight as far as the game was so far beyond as far as mine, had to be, as that's a very competitive world, and it's a little different than being a volunteer coach as far as at a high school program. But yeah, it got a nice resume, and again, I hope it, he's happy as far as with the position. I hope it works out. Such a different world. You and I know that, as far as players, it used to be they committed to you and they're going to be there for 4 years, what have you. Today, it's who's going to pay me the most money as far as the next position if I leave here and go somewhere else. And again, there's pros, there's cons to that. I get it as far as these individuals. Again, if they can make a few bucks, many of them don't have any money, good for them. The other side of the coin is it's certainly changed the game forever, and we'll have to see as far as from his standpoint. You get somebody at a Division I at their level, you build the kid up and whatever, and then the bigger schools have the deeper pockets, and they're able to attract these kids as far as to come that direction. And so the last couple of years, I know they had a couple of really nice players as far as up there, and one of them ended up over at Creighton and had a really, really nice career with Creighton this past year. So anyway, hopefully he can get him, and hopefully he can retain him and do a nice job as far as for the program as well as for himself.
I was listening to the Dan Patrick show last night. He was talking about, and this is Duke University. He goes, maybe the last outstanding 4-year player would have been Christian Leitner.
Yes.
Who went to the Final Four.
Sure.
All 4 years.
Yes.
2 national championships. And now they've got Cooper Flagg, who's going to be one and
done.
gone.
Yes. Yeah. It's something else. And this kid is amazing. But again, with the rule set as far as on the guy's side, I mean, they can depart quickly, and many of them are. And this kid, actually, I haven't watched one game. I've seen some highlights as far as of him, and he is he is spectacular. I mean, this kid has really, really paid the dues. So, got the chance to watch last night. Speaking of that, the Deal girl that's coming from California to Iowa to play for the Iowa Hawkeyes. She had a really nice outing last night as far as my son James said, hey, you need to turn on ESPN. Deal is playing, and I've never seen any footage of this gal, but I guess she's the real deal, and she held her own last night pretty well at the McDonald's high school girls basketball game, so it was pretty cool.
Visiting with Dave Nelson, we're going to go to the bottom of the hour. You know, we don't like to get too political, but the current administration's got to keep you guessing. I mean, volatile, uncertainty, what's next? That's what you hear people saying. How do you folks navigate all this?
It's really tough. I mean, the tools that we use basically factor in very little as far as politics. Decisions that we make typically are looking at what decisions are being made as far as from a corporation standpoint, CEOs, what are they willing to do? The uncertainty there is probably a bigger concern for us as far as many of these big corporations have modified plans, put plans on hold, what have you, to because of the uncertainty. And again, as you said, we don't want to get political. This isn't about politics. Both sides do plenty of things right, and both sides do plenty of things wrong. But this is, and again, people say, well, it's by design, and other people say it's chaos. I don't know what to believe, actually, but at the end of the day, it's certainly putting some doubt as far as in people's heads, as far as out there, as far as what should I do. Selfishly, again, we use really expensive tools, and these tools have worked quite well. As I've shared with you as far as on prior sessions, Gary, when you and I have chatted, we pretty much sold the bulk of our equities across the board late December. And for a couple weeks, it really looked like a stupid move. I mean, really dumb. And, we're sitting there keeping our fingers crossed that the tools were going to work. And certainly they have as far as looking at that was the first couple weeks. Look at the last several months. It's been pretty much moving sideways to down. So we're sitting kind of quietly on the sidelines with the bulk of the resources that we have been entrusted us as far as from our clients and hoping for better entry points than what we have. So yesterday, pretty big day as far as from a political perspective, as far as some elections that took place down in Florida. I guess they were to be expected as far as a win for the Republican Party. They got the wins. And then up in Wisconsin, as far as, this exciting election that has to do with Supreme Court. I mean, who's ever dreamt of anybody caring about anything like that? Well, people did, and there was millions and millions spent as far as to try to get it as far as one direction versus the next. And so the Democrats were able to grab hold of that particular seat, which, again, way over my pay grade. I don't know at the end of the day what it really translates into, but certainly it's Democrats are grabbing hold of it, that this is kind of the start of some backlash as far as towards the current administration in the White House and the individuals that he's brought along with him.
We'll get into more, and I know there's more to get into, but we're going to take a break for the weather. It's being brought to you by Kelly Heating and Air.
A weather impact alert in place through 6 o'clock this evening on your Wednesday for rounds of showers and thunderstorms. A few of those storms may be severe with hail, damaging wind gusts, and an isolated tornado or two. We will be in the low 70s this afternoon. Gusty winds up to 50 miles an hour at times. With your Storm Track 8 weather impact forecast, I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzky.
Right now it is overcast. We've had some rain. Our update brought to you by Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
Why do customers trust Kelly? Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning goes above and beyond with a maintenance service agreement. For one low annual cost, you can save 5% on repairs, have priority scheduling, and no overtime fees. Plus, it helps avoid costly future repairs. And if you need a new Bryant whole home comfort system, Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning has many different financing options to get you up and running, whatever it takes. Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning in Clinton, your Bryant factory authorized dealer.
We get to go to the bottom of the hour with Dave Nelson. Now, Dave, the other day on the news, I heard them say that it was a mixed market. Explain that.
So for most individuals out there, probably the most common index that they would be looking at would be the Dow. So the Dow's been around since the 20s, so we're going back a long, long time. And the Dow consists of 30 different stocks. So when people most of my career, when people have said, what'd the market do today, they're implying the Dow. They don't know that there's other indexes. That's kind of what they think of generically. That's what it is. Well, again, it's 30 stocks. So now fast forward to another index that we have, which is called the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 is 500 stocks, so it's a much broader view of the market. And again, the Dow and the NASDAQ, or the Dow and the S&P typically kind of move in sync with each other. If one's up, the other one's typically up. Not always, but probably 90% of the time, the two of those kind of move in sync. Then you have the other one, which is more current. It's primarily technology type stocks, not all, but primarily. It's called the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ, again, if you look at those three, that now is what we look at. We don't look at just the Dow. We don't look at just the S&P. We don't just look at the NASDAQ. All three of them really matter. So yesterday we had 2 up and we had 1 down. Hence, we've got a mixed market. And again, there's overlap with many of these indexes too. So like the Dow 30 stocks, I don't know exactly, but I'm going to say 10 at least are in the S&P 500. So there's an overlap there, and each index is proprietary. Those people spend a whole bunch of money as far as to create this. They make a whole bunch of money letting people use and make reference to these various indexes. But at the end of the day, there's a fair amount of overlap, and with that overlap, oftentimes you'll see all 3 up, all 3 down, and yesterday was a little different where we had 2 up and 1 down.
Okay. Now, you were on television the other day, and you said you had a pretty nice show. Thought the presentation pretty well. You got some notes there. I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, the whole concept of the interview piece was what's happening right now as far as the volatility and whatever, and what's causing that. And so I put together just a couple things just as reminders for me. But I think most people know that there's a lot of recession talk these days. Are we going to go into recession? And yes, it was being tossed around a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago. Now it's really getting people's attention as far as the likelihood is growing by the minute. And so that's obviously one big variable in creating some of the volatility. Inflation concerns. Now, inflation versus recession. It seems like there's a huge conflict there as far as between the two, and there is. Inflation typically is implying things are running really, really fast. Recession is implying, oops, we're going off the cliff, we're going the wrong direction as far as here. But both of those are still front and center as far as discussion points in the world that I exist in. The average person hopefully ignores all this stuff, but the world we exist in, these are really, really important. And then the tariffs, that's probably the biggest item. Client comes in, what do you think of the tariffs? Blah, 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 blah. So we have a discussion as far as that. The most recent one that I brought up, we've been chatting about, that's gotten a lot of attention as well in our world, is the FDA. So the Federal Department of Agriculture. Bottom line, the gentleman that was ahead of that is resigned, and many other individuals that are part of his team basically have said that they're going to be resigning as well. So there's a lot of pushback in some of the things that are happening now. Some people love it. We need to fire a whole bunch of people. We need to get rid of them. Other people are saying, hold the phone. These people are really important as far as the future, making some really important decisions as far as for our country. So again, I'm not smart enough to know who's going to be right in that discussion, but many of the people on the inside that are in positions that they've been in for years and, many of them decades, have basically said we've had enough and we're stepping aside. I don't know what that translates into, but I don't think that's going to be good news long term. There's a lot of knowledge and brain power that's gone into that, and that's now going to be lost. And so, again, we got to rebuild some of this stuff. And again, I'm very concerned about the debt that we have. I'm very concerned about the deficits that we're running. However, I think there needs to be a better plan. Now, the plan in the past was let's discuss this and we'll make some adjustments, and that hasn't worked too well because the deficit continues to grow. So I'm not stupid enough to realize that's been decade after decade that's taken place. So we have to do something differently, but I don't know if this is the right approach. People say, well, let's just wait and see as far as what happens, but there's a lot of decisions that are being made that are going to basically be a really important variable as far as in decisions down the road, and that's what concerns me as far as some of these decisions. So again, when it's all said and done, there's going to continue to be uncertainty. Today is Liberation Day, I guess is what we're calling it. The tariffs are going to be slapped on many countries around the globe. So we're going to see as far as what's going to transpire. The market when I left was down a decent amount this morning. So we'll have to wait and see as far as how things unfold.
You know, visiting with you through the years, we've always talked about how things have become more global, that it's not just the United States, it's all the different markets. So with all that going on, and, you know, the United States is the lead dog. I mean, how's that affecting some of the other markets?
Yeah, it really is. And if you look at the dollar, just in the last few months, as far as these talks have basically grown as far as the tariff discussion, the dollar has basically started sliding. Now, again, there's a whole nother discussion there as far as, is that good news or is that bad news? You know, typically you want a strong currency so the world looks at you and says, I've got confidence as far as in putting my money in that particular country. The negative is that it costs the people that are manufacturing, it puts us at a disadvantage as far as selling abroad. So there's kind of the rub back and forth either direction. What we do know is that the dollar is down. It's not down massively, but we're talking about a 4 or 5% drop, which in the currency world, that's pretty significant. But again, time's going to tell. It is a global economy. Europe, again, by some people's definition, has been basically, you know, ride the gravy train as far as letting us, you know, spend all the money, what have you. But most people don't understand the importance of the currency of the world and the positives that come along with that. And if we start screwing with that and we start making bad decisions where people start questioning, and there's already been some discussion about it, what's the next currency that the world is going to look to? And the euro at this point in time isn't in a position as far as for that. The Chinese market is not in a position. Japanese market is not. So we're really the only one today. But today could change pretty quick as far as some of the decisions being made abroad. You look at it as far as Saudi Arabia, Russia, many of the large emerging markets are now trading outside the dollar, so they're trading their own currencies. They don't use the dollar. Historically, if you were to buy energy, oil, what have you, all of it was traded in dollars, so everybody used the dollar. So the currency that was our currency gave us huge advantages as far as because of that. Again, if there's a question mark going forward as far as on that could really rock the boat and could affect each and every one of us as far as in a very negative way.
How do you not go crazy? I mean, just listening to you, and I'm not that involved with it as you definitely are, but how do you calm yourself?
It's not the easiest thing. Sleep is kind of a rare commodity as far as I go back to 07, 08. I would get up typically at 3 in the morning, turn on TV, and try to make decisions as far as that point in time, what's happening abroad. For those that don't remember, 07, 08, 09, the market collapsed in a big, big way. It was down 58%. You had the NASDAQ down 82%. I mean, there's a lot of stress that was happening as far as during those periods. Good news, our clients didn't drop even close to that. Good news is, again, we're able to shield them from literally probably 80% of it. The bad news, we were still down 10%, 15%, depending on the client. So yeah, it's a reality of the job. It's part of the job. People look to us as far as to try to help them make good decisions. And again, from our perspective, we're caught up in the same thing that a typical person is, and that is the 24-hour news. And all this stuff is flying out all the time. And it's tough as far as to sort through what matters versus what doesn't matter. Hence, many of the tools that we use factor in very little of this yapping that's taken place as far as now, and it's looking at stuff behind the scenes that matters, and hence it led us to a decision to sell, and we sold at a pretty good time as far as in hindsight.
Do you think that maybe there is just too much information out there for the average person?
Way too much. You know, think back to when you and I were younger as far as, Walter Cronkite show up, and tell you as far as what happened during the day. Today, there's, with the various media outlets, what have you, and people can get online. there's a ton of stuff. And again, sorting through what matters. I tell people, I said 90% of the stuff that you're coming across really doesn't matter. People used to come in with magazines, and the magazine would say, buy this, some particular mutual fund or a stock or whatever. Then I would have to calmly say to them, how many people are reading this publication, and how long did it take it to make its way to Clinton, Iowa, to really be able to leverage this data, this information. You've got no inside info as far as with this. Everything that they're discussing in here has already taken place. So that's the challenge as far as it was a challenge then. And the speed of information moving now, it's just unbelievable as far as how fast this stuff gets out there. So markets today have adjusted as far as to what they perceive to be what our president is going to come up with. And we'll see the market is going to be very volatile over the next several weeks. We think there's a decent amount of downside yet. We, in some ways, selfishly hope there is, as far as because we're positioned, our clients are positioned in a very defensive position at this point in time.
Well, folks are going to be able to visit with you once again at the Vista Grande for the Plus 50 Living Fair.
Yes.
You and Clinton National Bank have been a part of every one of our Plus 50 Living Fairs, and I thank you for that.
Yes, you betcha.
But you could get some interesting questions out there
There'll be
this year.
Exactly. There's always uncertainty as far as in the markets, and uncertainty, again, selfishly, is a really good thing. But this is at a different level. And again, that's not a political statement. It's just a reality that, nobody knows right now as far as what's going to unfold. And what unfolds today may be different a week from now. And so that's the real challenge that people face. And we'll do everything we can to try to, again, give people maybe a little bit better insight as far as than what they currently have. And again, I always bring this up as far as our job is to, as much as we can, ignore politics. It's to try to help people grow their money. And subsequently, that isn't a Democratic statement. That's not a Republican statement. That's basically a statement as far as an investor and what we're interested in. So we'll do what we can as far as to help people out there. And yeah, it's been a great partnership, and we're looking forward to it again.
And finally, before we let you go, and thank you so much for coming in. Tax day is coming up,
Yes.
so I would imagine the guys down there are getting ready to wrap things up.
Yes, yeah, they can't wait. Every day I ask, how you doing? Are you hanging in there? So it's been a long, few months as far as for everybody, but it's part of the job, and you suck it up and we push through. So thanks,
Hey,
Gary.
Thank you.
Financial Focus is a production of NelsonCorp Wealth Management in Clinton and Davenport. The opinion